This is Gunrunner, which is a Yarkin 30-foot yacht that the Army bought in 1985 and has owned it since then for the purpose of both adventurous training and the conduct of sport and introducing soldiers to sailing as a sport. We've been doing that now for the last 33 years, and I've taken over as the Commodore of the club for about 3 years ago. Since then, 3 years ago, we made a commitment that we wanted to move into the offshore sailing, return to offshore sailing, and we were embarked on a 3-year campaign to improve the abilities of the yacht, its structural integrity, and then build our own experience inside the Army so that we could do the Gold Coast race, the Airlie Beach Regatta, Hamilton Series, and then last year, for the first time in 20 years, the Army went off and competed in the Sydney to Hobart, which was a magnificent experience. Taking a new crew this year, only myself and the first mate have done serious offshore racing, so we're building up a whole new team and taking them on, making sure that they've got that Army training behind them and getting stuck into what is some of the premier offshore racing in the world. Used to have a tiller. We're now very proud of the wheel that we've got here, and we've been continuing to try to upgrade and maintain the yacht as we continue through our series. You see a small cockpit. We race with a crew of 6, 3 people on deck at any one time, and then 3 people off watch down below. That's in a staggered fashion, so one person goes off replaced by another, so we've always got 2 people upstairs who know what is happening, and everybody shares the responsibilities from being at the helm to running the main, running the sheets, on the foredeck, changing sails, etc., and all being ballast on the side. During our offshore passages to teach people and introduce people sailing, we sometimes have up to 8 people on board, but they're pretty much squeezed in at the V-berth at the bow of the boat. But mainly, if you come on board to this ship, firstly you've got to be aware that before you start racing, there's plenty of work to do. Everybody in the crew has to pitch in and do the administration and the prep work that goes into bringing a boat to a race. You know, you just don't tip up and expect to be on day one to be racing. There's a lot of prep work that goes into that, so we're doing that. Second to that, once you're on board and racing, you're expected to do every part and every function that's required on board. So from navigation to cooking meals and then to the actual running of the yacht upstairs. As I said before, we have 3 people on watch at any one time, and then the remaining 3 are downstairs. So usually the skipper is down here behind the nav station. We have all of our sails down here, and somebody's lucky enough to be perched on top of that. And then this is perhaps the absolute most comfortable berth that we have, where a lucky 2 people, because they're hot bunking, will share that bunk. So watches of about 3 to 4 hours. You'd expect to be woken up by the same person every 3 hours, and then go up, do your stint, and then come back down again, put your head down, or go about your daily business, which includes eating. And I have to mention this, and this is really a tip of the hat to the Commodore, John Marcos. We are still eating Army rations. So hard Army rations, as we would expect in the field, because we're hard Army people on occasion. But don't you worry, we certainly don't lose too much from that. There's plenty of calories involved. One thing I have to point out, we're at the bottom end of the scale when it comes to money. We aren't tipping money into the yacht. Your tax dollars are being spent wisely, and so there's no chart plotter. So here at the nav station, every hour we are using paper charts and charting and navigating from paper charts the entire way, from as soon as we leave Sydney until we get to Southport, and indeed as we did all the way down to Hobart. And that's our battle map to Hobart, which is the macro copy of the chart, just so we could track who was in front of us, where we were going, and how we were tracking for the whole 5 days we were out at sea. Great thing about Army rations is that we're all Army soldiers who understand Army rations, and all you need is hot water. So we have the kettle going continuously, and you simply take a packet out. You either put water into it or put it into water, and it will heat up automatically, and you just tuck into it. So it's usually self-rationing, but and the joint bit is someone turning the kettle on and doling out. Usually the coffees. That's probably the most important thing. Yeah. And in fact, all of the sails carry one of the Army's values. I think I said before, Army values of courage, initiative, teamwork and respect. So they're all the things that we instill in our soldiers, and I think are absolutely relevant for any team that is taking on offshore sailing. If you don't have that on board, then you're going to have a fractured team very quickly, and then suddenly racing becomes a terrible experience. So we instill that in all of our soldiers, and it's on our sails to show.